This is Fat to Fierce. Welcome to the Confidence Chronicles. I'm your host, Amy English. Join me on this empowering adventure towards a healthier relationship with food, body, and self, one delicious bite at a time. Welcome to episode 38 of the Confidence Chronicles. I'm your host, Amy English. And in last week's episode, number 37, I gave a little teaser for this week's episode and how we're going to talk about the idea of holding on to weight, like why we sometimes hold on to weight. And what I mean by that, let me back up just a second. If you've ever been on any kind of a weight journey for a lengthy period of time, like if you've listened to any of the previous episodes, you know by now that I've been on a weight loss journey since I was about 10 years old, right? And over those decades, because yes, it's been decades, I have experienced lots of yo-yoing. I call it the yo-yo, where you lose a bunch of weight and then it comes back on, lose a bunch of weight and it comes back on. Other people might call it the weight loss roller coaster or the boomerang, whatever you call it. It's this idea of losing weight, but then packing it back on, all the weight and sometimes more. And also, when you're on this journey, it can sometimes be incredibly difficult to let the weight go, to remove it. And what I have learned over the years as a coach through coach training and my coaching practice is that there can be reasons that we hold on to the weight. Now, it's important to note, I am not a medical doctor, so we're not going to get into medical specifics here, like hormones and other medical reasons. I'm also not a psychologist, so I'm not going to get into trauma and things like that. I'm going to share from my own personal perspective as a life coach, because I am a life coach who has used coaching tools to heal my own weight struggle, including the yo-yo and holding on to weight. And what I'm going to share today is based on my own personal experience with me and what I have witnessed as a coach to dozens of clients over the years. Because while we all have our own unique circumstances and our own unique stories, there are also a lot of similarities in terms of, holding on to weight, emotional eating, things like that. All the things we work on in Fat to Fierce, right? There's a lot of commonalities, but the specific stories are unique to the individual. Okay. All that said, let's dive in, shall we? But first. So as I was doing some research for this topic today, I was researching my own personal blog, okay, on my website. And I wanted to share that there is a ton of reading material on my blog. And you can visit it at amyenglishcc.com/resources. There you'll find the blog. And it's a couple years worth of content explaining all kinds of different things related to emotional eating, body image, the weight loss journey. And in fact, one thing, and I tend to forget about this stuff because it's, I wrote this stuff years ago, but I think it was 2019. I did a whole year-long series on my 100-pound weight loss journey, my 100-pound weight loss goal. And each month I did a recap, including something new that I learned on my journey. And just a quick news flash. No, I did not hit the 100-pound weight loss goal that year. In fact, it really wasn't even about that at the end of the day. It was more about all the things that I learned as I was going through that experience. And that is one of the areas that is what brings me to the topic today, because one of the things that I did realize over the course of that year was the different ways that I hold on to weight. And so without further ado, we're going to start to dive in. All right. So there are many ways, many reasons that we hold on to weight, or many reasons that we struggle to keep the weight off. Okay. If you've been on a weight loss journey for any length of time, this may sound very familiar to you. And I also want to say, take what's useful from this episode. Okay. Some of it may resonate, some of it may not. That's okay. If it resonates and you find it helpful, fantastic. If it doesn't, no worries. Okay. It's not for everybody, and that's okay. But there are many reasons why we hold on to weight. Okay, so before I go off on another tangent, I'm just going to start by sharing a piece from a blog post that I wrote in April of 2018. And it was called The Struggle. Such an appropriate title, don't you think? Okay. And you can find this again if you go to my website and you go to my blog, it's there. It's called The Struggle. Here's what I wrote. I'm going to read this to you. There's a reason your body gains the weight back. It's not because you're weak. It's not because you suck or have no self-discipline. I tend to believe that the extra weight we carry can be a physical manifestation of something. What do you think it is? For every person, it's different. You may not be conscious of the answers to that question, but it is within you. And it's possible that there's more than one answer. Fascinating, right? Now, for the purpose of this episode, I decided to break it down to 3 of the more common potential reasons for holding on to weight. So, as I was researching, looking through my own, reflecting on my own journey and the journey of my clients, these are the 3 most common reasons for holding on to weight or feeling like losing weight is a struggle, especially when it continues to come back on. And the first reason is safety, protection. My weight has served as a source of protection and safety throughout most of my life. It's almost like we can use our weight as a visible armor for different reasons. We all have our own reasons for creating safety and protection with this external layer on our bodies, okay? And I have shared before in the past that I was tormented about my body from a very early age. So it's not surprising to think that I may have used weight as a way to hide, even though that weight was being used against me by other people. For some reason, it still felt safer to have the weight there as almost as a barrier or as a buffer, right? This really resonates for me when I think about it. And also, anytime I lost a significant amount of weight in my life, and this is going more into the older years, like high school and college years, I had to deal with unwanted attention, especially from the opposite sex. And so I do believe this to be another reason for keeping the armor on. Again, to stay hidden, to stay unnoticeable, for that armor, that barrier, right? It makes a lot of sense. And for the most part, I mean, until I realized it was subconscious. It's subconsciously at play. At least it was until I started doing this work, until I was willing to explore it, to lift the rug, so to speak, and see what was underneath, right? That awareness alone is helpful for healing. And when I do recognize this coming up, the idea of safety, because here's another piece to this, all right? Going back to the breast cancer diagnosis. So when I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2013, if you remember from previous episodes, I had just lost 100 pounds. And then 2 weeks later, I found out I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I very rapidly started gaining weight back, right? I gained 30 pounds back in that first month alone. And what I have realized over the years since then is that putting on that additional weight, like, yes, of course, stress eating had a lot to do with it. That's the reason why the weight was coming back. But also, I do wonder if it was some form of like my body in a protective mode, wanting to put the weight back on. Like, that wouldn't surprise me in the least. And if this lands for you, if this makes a lot of sense, here are some of the ways that I've helped myself and my clients along the way when the whole safety issue appears. And that is reminding myself that I'm safe, doing breath work to calm my nervous system, hand on heart, take some deep breaths. That can really start to bring the anxiety, the nervousness down, right? And also having compassion is going to go a long way. So when you can have compassion for yourself and understanding why your body might be hanging on to this extra weight, that's going to make it a little bit easier to get past it, quite honestly. Because when you don't have compassion, when you're fighting against yourself and you're working against yourself, so picture it this way. Let me explain it like this. You are potentially holding on to the weight for safety reasons, right? It's a form of safety. It's a form of protection. That's what your body's doing. At the same time, you're fighting against your body because you want to lose this weight. Can you see the tug of war that's happening right there? It's like on one side, you want to hold on to the weight because it feels safer. And on the other side, you want to let the weight go because, you're sick of being this weight. You want to be thinner, whatever the case may be, right? Makes it really challenging. Not only does it put you in a pressure cooker, in a tug of war with yourself, it makes for a very frustrating experience. So having self-compassion and understanding and some patience for yourself, because think about it. These reasons that we're going to talk about today, and even if it is a safety mechanism, I mean, how brilliant of yourself and your body to come up with this way for protection. I mean, it is really quite fascinating when you think about it. Okay, another potential reason for holding on to weight that I have found through the years is that it was for me very much so part of my identity, part of my story, part of who I believed I was at the time. Someone who struggled with weight, somebody who was constantly on a diet, someone who was always trying to lose weight, someone who was always worried that she looked fat. When that struggle seemed like it was part of my identity, it's no wonder I continue to get caught up in the cycle to keep the weight on. That's the role I was playing, essentially. And I tend to believe that when weight has become part of our identity or part of our story on a much deeper level, it's hard to change that story when you're not aware of it. And again, that's going to keep you working against yourself, essentially, fighting against yourself. It's that pressure cooker situation where you're trying so hard to get rid of the weight, but then your body's like, wait a second, no, hold on. We're literally holding on to this for various reasons. Makes it a very difficult situation to overcome. I also think that weight loss can be a huge distraction. It is something to focus on. It keeps our attention. So when these stories are at play, it's possible that holding on to the weight keeps us busy trying to get rid of it, and that record just keeps playing on repeat. It may be a distraction from other things. In my personal experience, I do suspect that the constant focus on weight kept me from going outside of my comfort zone in other areas of my life. Combine that with the weight serving as safety, keeping me hidden, and it's no wonder that it's been a struggle to remove it. If it feels like the weight story, your weight has been part of your identity, then it can be helpful to remind yourself that it's not. The same way that you are not a stress eater, okay? You have a habit of stress eating potentially. It's not who you are, it's not your identity. You are not your weight. You are not fat. You are you. And there's much more to your story than your weight journey. If your weight story has been serving you for whatever reason, then it's understandable. More compassion for your intelligent self for finding ways to cope with whatever was happening. All of the reasons we're discussing today are quite brilliant, and just a reminder that we truly are amazing beings. All right, that brings us to reason number 3 for potentially holding on to the weight, and this is the rebellion. This one is a doozy. And again, I want to share with you what I wrote in that blog post titled The Struggle from April of 2018. Here goes. My weight has also been a rebellion against the people who disapprove. In a twisted way, it has served as my voice saying, screw you, to all of those who fat shame. I manifested a shield that would both protect me and serve as a big, giant middle finger. Good intentions, but probably not what I need at this point. Oof. Now, you may be wondering, why is any of this important? Well, because working with yourself and your body is critical if you want to heal and solve for the issue of holding on to weight. And again, it can be a multi-layered process that has other components as well, like hormones and all the medical stuff. But understanding this piece, these pieces, these reasons for holding on to weight is going to be huge if this is something that you've struggled with for any length of time. And as I mentioned, if you are struggling with any of these factors, any of these reasons, and you're fighting to get rid of the weight, this is what keeps you in the tug of war. This is potentially a big part of the yo-yo. And so bringing it back to present day, I wanted to share, I've had a heck of a time getting past where I'm at right now with my weight. I have been in the same weight range for the last 3 to 4 months. Rather than freak out about this and start searching for another solution outside of myself, I simply check in. I remind myself that I'm safe. My weight is not my identity, and I don't have to rebel against anyone or anything. I take several deep breaths and I give my body a chance to catch up. And I think this is real important, especially when we're looking at a plateau. Now, I know there can be nutrition reasons for reaching a plateau, and there's ways to go around them. Here's the way I look at it at a plateau when I reach one. It is just a chance for my body to catch up with all the work that I've been doing. It is certainly not a chance or not an opportunity to derail or go back to my old ways of eating or anything like that. Okay. That's what happens when you make this a lifestyle change. And I don't mean lifestyle change like following a diet or something like that. I mean by paying attention to your body, understanding what foods feel good, understanding the difference between power foods and pleasure foods and how each one feels in your body, of listening to your hunger cues, paying attention to physical hunger, not always listening to the emotional and mental hunger, right? Like really making these changes that we talk about in Fat to Fierce. Once you start implementing all of these tools, you just keep moving forward with them. And even when you do hit a plateau, it's okay because it's not going to change what you're already doing. That is the lifestyle change. Recap all of this today. weight can be a source of safety and protection. It can be part of your identity. It can serve as a rebellion. If any of this rings true for you, as it has for me, then it's important to be gentle with yourself. And all that means is quit shit talking yourself, okay? We want to put the critic off to the side. Where being your own cheerleader can be really helpful as opposed to the critic. When we get curious with compassion, we can begin working with ourselves instead of fighting with ourselves in the pressure cooker. And the reason all of this is important, sometimes we keep chasing the answer outside of ourselves when there is so much helpful information that lies within. And that is the beauty of Fat to Fierce. It's really working from the inside out. I hope that this has been helpful today. And if you have any questions, if you're curious about working together one-on-one, I invite you to book a connection call straight from my website, amyenglishcc.com. I would love to talk to you more. Are you ready to take control of your eating, embrace your body, and boost your confidence? Then let's get fierce. Start your Fat to Fierce journey today. Go to amyenglishcc.com for more resources and to book your discovery call.